Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Jason Legion Inman.
I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson. Welcome to your Mind University, because you have stumbled onto the podcast where we take one character, construct, or legionnaire from popular culture and teach you everything you need to know about them in about an hour. And today we are talking about a guy that we've seen crop up on television quite a bit recently. We are talking about who, Jason?
We're talking about Mon-El, because Mon-El is all over Supergirl Season 2. He is played by Chris Wood. Now, no one suggested this lesson. None of our Mind University students suggested this lesson. We just thought about doing it because, again, Mon-El is all over Supergirl, and I have a fondness for everything Legion of Superheroes. But if you want to suggest future lessons, don't forget that you can do that on our new Geek History Lesson Twitter at GHL Podcast. Come to me at Twitter at Jawiin, Jawiin, and go to Ashley on Twitter at Ashley V. Robinson. That's the place you can suggest these lessons because, guys, don't leave us out here in the cold. We want students to suggest these lessons.
We want TAs.
We want TAs for every single episode. I was surprised. I figured in our 3-year history that somebody would have suggested Mon-El. Nope.
I think we have a lot of suggestions for the Legion, but maybe not for Mon-El specifically.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's move into the first section of this podcast called the 10-cent origin.
And the 10-cent origin is where we give you all the basic constructs, creators, and first appearances in case you ever go to a cocktail party and someone is like, what's up with this Mon-El guy? And then, you can tell them more than just about the TV show. You look like super cool dude.
That's right. All right, of course, Mon-El is published by DC Comics. His first appearance was in Superboy number 89 in June of 1961. He was created by Robert Bernstein and George Papp. George Papp, of course, is a very famous Legion of Superheroes creator. Mm-hmm. His full name is Largand / Mon-El. I only bring that up because if you are current with Supergirl, the television series as of now, Kevin Sorbo showed up as Largand.
Well,
just throwing it out there, just in case. His species, of course, is Daxamite. His place of origin is Daxam, and his team affiliations are
I know, the Legion.
The Legion of Superheroes, and the Legion, and the Science Police in the 21st century, the Justice League, the Green Lantern Corps. His notable aliases are Bob Cobb, Marvel Lad, Legionnaire Lemon, Valor, Mon-El, Champion, Jonathan Kent, and Mike Matthews.
I'm sorry, Bob Cobb.
Bob Cobb.
Awesome.
That's right. And his abilities are, of course, Daxamite abilities under a yellow sun, superhuman strength, superhuman speed, superhuman endurance, and vulnerability, a healing factor, flight, freeze breath, vortex breath, heat vision, telescopic vision, microscopic vision, superhuman hearing, and longevity.
Wow.
That's the best superpower of all.
Longevity.
The kids will never get tired of you if you have longevity.
I guess not.
All right, let's move into the Meet Cute.
And the Meet Cute is the second part of the podcast where we tell you the first time we meeted a character and how cute it was.
Ashley, I'm very curious because I don't really know your exposure to the Legion and stuff like that. So where did you first meet Mon-El?
My exposure to the Legion is pretty much I read Legion Lost once and the cartoon. So it's
Mon-El is in neither of those.
I know. I really don't know when I first met Mon-El. I feel like he was a character I was told about because I don't think I've ever read him. But by the time we got around to him appearing on Supergirl, I definitely knew who Mon-El was. But I don't know if I ever knew who he was beyond he's a Superman analog. So I don't know what my meet cute is for Mon-El, which is not a great answer. But there you go. Great podcasting. Where did you first meet Mr. Mon-El?
Well, as you can see on this great podcast as we are, I'm holding up a full page ad for no, I'm just kidding. I thought I would go down this road of bad podcasting tips. No, I met Mon-El when he was known as Valor, and he had his own solo series. And I knew this because they would advertise Valor in full-page ads in DC Comics in the mid-'90s. Mm-hmm. And I always liked him, and I liked his costume. And then later when he got his different costume with the big red M and he had stars as a background, which I think is Mon-El's best costume. Mm-hmm. Like I said, they would advertise with that image. And so that's where I sort of figured out who Mon-El was, but I didn't really quite know who he was. I sort of always knew him as the replacement Superboy, which we'll learn a little bit about. But yeah, that's where I meted it and cuted it. Mon-El.
In an ad.
In an
How
ad.
romantic.
Yeah, that's where a lot of my meet cutes come from, ads.
Ads?
Yeah.
I don't think that's true.
Full page ads. All right, let's move on into the history of 101.
Which is the main meat of the lesson where Professor Jason is going to lay out everything that you could ever need to know about Mon-El.
Okay, I'm going to throw this out there right now.
Is it a caveat?
It is a huge, huge caveat.
Sweet. I'm ready. Tell me.
We are dipping our toes into Legion of Superheroes territories. Things are going to get confusing as the Legion has been rebooted several times. And Mon-El, of course, is a member of the Legion of Superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
So get ready for retcons aplenty.
Yeah.
And this might be super confusing. So before you come at me on Twitter for this, I did my best, yo.
Yeah.
This is literally the most confusing history that I ever had to do research on. There were several times where histories contradicted each other. So I had to do my best at picking what I thought made the most sense.
Mm-hmm.
When we do the full Legion of Superheroes Geek History lesson,
Eventually,
dear God,
yeah.
that is going to be a baptism of fire of Geek History lessons.
Calling it right now. You're teaching it. It's going to be great.
Oh my God. We might just bring in a guest professor. I
Sure.
don't know if I want to do that. All right. Let's jump right into Mon-El.
All right, teach me.
All right. Mon-El was based on a character named Hulk Carr, who was created in 1953 by Otto Binder and Al Pacino. Hulk Carr first appeared in a story titled Superman's Big Brother in Superman number 8. And Mon-El's origin story and costume closely resemble Hulk Carr. So Mon-El is not even original. He's a copy of a previous character.
Who's probably a copy of Superman.
Yeah. Now let's talk about Largan specifically.
Okay.
Now, he's variously known as Mon-El or Valor. He's a Daxamite. He's an alien from the planet Daxam. And while he was exploring the galaxy, he landed on Krypton and was immediately warned by Jor-El of the planet's imminent destruction. And he was given a map to Earth. And then Jor-El put him back in suspended animation. After a few years, he landed on Earth and met Superboy. Although Gant suffered from amnesia upon landing on Earth, he and Superboy became good friends. And under Earth's yellow sun, he had powers like those of Superman. And this led Superboy to believe that Gant might be his unknown, long-lost brother.
Now, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
This is the time when Superboy is actually Clark Kent, correct?
Yes, we are in the Silver Age right now.
Yes. So this is not Connor or Jonathan as we currently know them.
When Superboy becomes Con-El, I will tell you so. Because Con-El will appear in this lesson.
There might be some people who don't know that Superboy used to be Clark. So.
Sure. This is Clark Kent Superboy.
Cool.
The original. So Superboy thought this guy was his brother, so he named him Mon-El. Mon because he landed on Earth on a Monday.
Oh my God.
And El for Superboy's own Kryptonian family name.
Mon-El.
Yep.
Goodness me.
Mon-El moved into the Kent home and created his own secret identity, Bob Cobb, to integrate
Mon-El.
to integrate into Superboy's hometown of Smallville. And when in alien garb, he accompanied Superboy on his heroic feats. However, when Mon-El failed to experience pain during an unnoticed inadvertent exposure to kryptonite, which of course is poisonous to all Kryptonians, Superboy suspected Mon-El was deliberately pretending to be Kryptonian for nefarious purposes.
Yeah, because that makes complete sense.
Infuriated over what he believed to be a deliberate manipulation of his desire for ties to Kryptonian family, Superboy created a fake kryptonite meteorite made of lead. And when Mon-El was debilitated in his presence, Superboy believed his reaction to be proof of the deception. Now note, this is when Silver Age Superman characters are terrible, terrible people.
I can see that. Yeah.
So, Mon-El turned out to be in genuine pain because, actually in a remarkable piece of comic irony, Daxamites are highly sensitive to lead. Even more so than Kryptonians are to kryptonite. Whereas Kryptonians can recover from kryptonite poisoning if removed from the exposure in time, even a small amount of lead causes fatal, irreversible poisoning to Daxamites.
You know, if that were true on the TV show, then Mon-El couldn't be around Kara because her glasses are lead-lined, as we learned in season 1.
Oh, interesting.
That'd be an interesting revelation.
Having regained his memories of meeting Jor-El and his true nature, because of the lead poisoning. Mon-El was dying, so a guilt-ridden Superboy transported him to the extra-dimensional Phantom Zone until a cure could be found. Gand spent 1,000 years as a poisoned, insubstantial, telepathic phantom, able to watch everything that happened in the outside world, but unable to affect it in the slightest. Thanks, Superboy.
Wow. The Silver Age is weird.
In the 30th century, Saturn Girl, a member of the Legion of Superheroes,
Hey, I know her.
created a temporary antidote to this poisoning, allowing Mon-El to be released from the zone for brief periods of time. During this period, he was considered an honorary Legionnaire, and Brainiac 5 later created a permanent antidote based on Saturn Girl's serum with the addition of kryptonite. And now he probably he had the chance to join the Legion of Superheroes.
Dun, dun, dun. Probably what he's most well known for.
And you're probably asking, what is the Legion of Superheroes?
Jason, what is the Legion of Superheroes?
Well, the Legion of Superheroes, Ashley, are basically a team of superpowered teens from the future that live in an upside-down rocket. Originally based in the 30th century, now the 31st century, as they keep moving the timeline.
Yes. A lot of love, a revolving timeline.
After passing his Legion test by inventing the flight ring medal.
Wow. That's pretty impressive, Mon-El.
Under the name of Marvel Lad.
Marvel Lad.
Yep. Largand then joined the Legion of Superheroes. If you can tell by Mon-El like uses a lot of confusing names that are all sound similar.
Yeah.
He joined the Legion of Superheroes. He used the Mon-El name that Superboy had given him. And during this time, he was considered to be one of the Legion's big three, along with Superboy, who we got to meet again, of course, because Superboy was traveling to the future.
Oh, that's right.
And Ultra Boy.
Oh, look, 3 boys.
Yep.
That's nice.
In fact, his Daxamite abilities, coupled with his immunity to the effects of kryptonite and lead because of the serum, made him the most powerful of all the Legionnaires. And he served 2 terms as their leader.
That's cool. They got term limits?
They do. They elect their leaders, and then they,
Look at how responsible the Legion is.
These teenagers, right?
My admiration for them grows by the minute.
Well, in the future, we figure out politics. I don't know if you do
I
this.
guess so.
Because even the teenagers figured it out.
They're like,
All
2
right.
terms, that's enough. Move along.
All right. He stayed with the Legion for many years and serving, again, as I said, in several terms as leader. And he also found the love of his life with teammate Tasmia Malor, also known as Shadowlass.
That'd be a great drag name. I'm just saying.
Yep. Now, he stayed away from Daxam for the most part until the evil Darkseid transformed his entire planet into his servants of darkness.
Oh, no.
And the servants completely destroyed the planet after they were freed. Until after they were freed, excuse me. And Mon-El took responsibility for helping his people return to normal. And then Crisis on Infinite Earths happened.
Dun,
Ashley,
da-da-da.
we talk about it so many times in this podcast. I'm sure the regular listeners are tired of it. But you know what? We never know when the first time listener might be there, so we have to explain it every time.
I also get a kick out of every time someone tweets this to me. There were too many Earths. So DC said there's only going to be one Earth. So the Anti-Monitor ate all of the universes, and then there was only one.
Yes. And buckle in for the confusion, folks, because here it begins.
Oh, man. My body is ready.
In 1985, because of DC Comics' revamp called Crisis on Infinite Earths, the editors of DC decided to remove Superman's adventures as Superboy
Correct.
from Superman's history. Mon-El's character history remained unchanged, however, with his encounter with Superboy said to have taken place in a pocket universe created by Time Trapper, who is a mysterious Legion of Superheroes supervillain living at the end of the universe.
That's not the worst thing I've ever heard.
Yep. Severely injured and dependent on life support equipment during a battle with the Time Trapper after Superboy's death, Mon-El dies during the Magic Wars, which destroys much of the technology through the United Planets. Now, if you're a little bit confused here, the Legion's history kept going on after Crisis on Infinite Earths.
You know,
And all the editor said was, hey, the Superboy, that's not Clark Kent. That's a Superboy from this pocket dimension. So, even though the rest of the DC universe kept going on, or was like, hey, we're brand new, the Legion was still from the Silver Age.
Every time DC does a reboot, and there have been a few of them, there's always one property that just sneaks by and doesn't get rebooted. And I never knew that it was once the Legion. How interesting.
For Crisis on Infinite Earths, it was the Legion.
The poor Legion.
So I'm telling you about this Magic Wars and stuff like that is their continued storyline after Crisis.
Sure.
Now, so Mon-El dies.
Yes.
The Time Trapper later revives him, hoping to use his body to preserve his own waning existence. But Mon-El kills him to prevent the Trapper from further manipulating events throughout history. This wipes out that Superboy pocket universe out of existence and alters the timeline.
Oh, good.
The Trapper's role and his powers are usurped by one-time underling Glorith, and Largand is recast for the first time as Valor.
Which is where you know him from.
Yes. And now we enter the reboot known as the Glorith verse.
That's a terrible name.
So, here's again. Now, a little bit of the time frame gets a little bit muddy here.
Sure.
Late 80-ish, early 90s-ish.
Okay.
The Legion gets a reboot.
After everyone else.
5 to 6 years after everyone else.
Great.
Yep.
Okay.
Because the editors were just like, you know what? This doesn't work with them, not being rebooted with the rest of the universe.
This is a little much.
Let's go reboot them.
Okay.
Separately of the rest of the universe.
Okay. And some poor writers had to fix it.
Yeah. Okay. So the Legion gets their quote-unquote second reboot.
Okay. Great.
In this new Glorith-verse reality, Largand replaced the non-existent Superboy as the Legion's inspiration. Mm-hmm. So in the 20th century, Largand was inspired by his father's sacrifice in Invasion to become a hero. Now, Ashley, really quickly, what is Invasion?
Invasion is an event that you probably recently saw in a bunch of DC TV shows where the Dominators. I was like, Dominatrixes? Where the Dominators attack Earth with a metahuman bomb to destroy all the superpowers, and everyone in the DC universe for the first time has to team up and defeat them.
Yes, and Largand's father is in that event.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yes.
I've read that and I didn't know that.
And he dies in that event, of course.
Oh, so sad.
So Largand, of course, is inspired
by his father's sacrifice.
Yes, by his father's sacrifice. And he joins this group called the Legion.
Hey, look at that. That's a very classic superhero, origin story. Something happens to the parents and then like Batman, you sort of take up the mantle and become super again.
Yes, but of course, this, was not the Legion of Comics, the Legion of Superheroes Legion. This is a Legion led by Vril Drox that is a group that exists in the 20th century.
Sure.
And it was Vril Drox who actually is a relation to Brainiac.
Yes.
Who cured his lead poisoning.
Oh,
now,
good.
Largand would enjoy a heroic career in the 20th century as Valor, stopping a second Dominator-led invasion of Earth, freeing thousands of humans who had been experimented on by the Dominators, and seeding them on a series of worlds between Dominion space and Earth as a buffer zone to prevent future invasions. Now, these colonists had gained metahuman powers due to the experimentations of the Dominators, and would, by the thousands of years of the Legion, evolve into many of the worlds that would join the United Planets. Now, this is something that I really like. I like this idea that Valor is responsible basically for creating the United Planets.
Mm-hmm. That's a heck of a legacy.
Yes. Now, Largand also plays a significant part in the Eclipse of the Darkness Within crossover, in which Superman gives him the name of Valor.
Oh, cool.
Which is nice. And then he gets his solo series, Valor, which lasted for about 23 issues, beginning with Lar as an adventurous young man exploring the universe in a spaceship with a sentient AI called Babbage. And he encountered various aliens and other civilizations.
They name his AI after one of the greatest Shakespearean actors of all time.
Now, actually, if you didn't think this was already confusing enough, it's going to get super complicated again.
Oh, man, I'm ready.
Now, remember I told you that Glorith took over the role of the Time Trapper in this universe? That's the reason why this is called the Glorithverse.
Yeah.
Well, apparently Glorith couldn't get enough of altering the timeline.
Oh, good.
And she continues to do so, inadvertently recreating the original Time Trapper in the process.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Yeah, comics. Yay. Legion. Yay.
Yep. Now, later, Valor meets the whole Legion, who travel back in time from 2973 to make him an honorary Legionnaire. Valor then meets Glorith, who imprisons Valor in the Bigzit buffer zone for its BGZTL. I'm just going to call it Big Z buffer
This
zone.
is like some Welsh level spelling going on.
Now, Glorith traps him in this buffer zone for, because she wanted to get busy with him. He didn't want anything to do with that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she entraps him in this zone for 1,000 years for rejecting her advances. After this abrupt disappearance, he becomes a legend and an almost religious figure throughout much of the galaxy. And Valor dies, but he gets replaced by a time paradox duplicate, Mon-El.
Oh, so this is now like the Flash.
Get ready.
Now we have a time remnant. Okie dokie.
A younger version of Mon-El was found with several other young Legionnaires called Batch SW6.
Sure.
Originally believing themselves to just be clones, they were from a different timeline.
Oh, it really is like the Flash.
Oh my God. When Valor disappeared from 30th century history because he went into this big zik zone, this sent the Legionnaires back in time to investigate. They find out that Valor had actually died from lead poisoning before he could free the Dominion's captive and seed all of those worlds. He was then replaced by his clone from the 30th century, this Mon-El, who decided to take on the responsibility. The SW6 Valor was then banished by Glorith into the Phantom Zone, and though the SW6 had effectively fixed Valor's history was then playing out much earlier than it was supposed to be, which led to some changes in Valor's exploits, and this was one of the many destabilizations of the time stream that eventually led to 0 Hour, and it's making you go crazy. History go crazy. How? What? None of this makes sense.
I just want to be like, so an editor okayed all of this.
Yes. And actually all of this happens at the end of the Valor solo series.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. But it's interesting because it seems like they had a pretty good thing going on here with Valor. And they were like, you know what? He needs to be called Mon-El again. But instead of just changing the name like we do all the time, we're going to do this real weird time remnant timeline thing.
Yes.
Nonsense.
So if you're keeping count here, we had the original Mon-El, which continued on. Then they stuck this. Then they made Mon-El the Superboy, which I would call reboot 2.
Sure.
And then that Mon-El was rebooted by a Mon-El. So we're now at 3 reboots of Mon-El.
And somewhere in there, he changes his name to Valor.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Valor is the second guy.
Yeah. Okay.
But let's just keep a running count for us, Ashley, please. We are at 3
Mon-Els.
We are at 3 reboots of Mon-El right
and
now.
counting.
And counting. Get ready.
Oh, my body is ready.
And then we go to 0 Hour. Ashley, before we get to 0 Hour, I have to ask, are we completely confused yet?
Yes.
Good, because it's all about to be wiped away. But you know what should never be wiped away?
What should never be wiped away?
Geek history lesson.
That is correct.
And you can do that by becoming one of our lovely patrons for as little as $1 a month. Guys, we do 4 episodes a month, and that's 25 cents an episode. Go to patreon.com/Jawiin, Jawiin, and that is where you can become one of our lovely patrons.
Yes.
And you get to listen to Geek History Lesson episodes early. You get to listen to the exclusive Geek History Lesson Extra podcast that only our patrons can listen to. And friends, your support over there helps us keep making this show, helps us keep all this crazy research time possible, and lets us do bigger and better things like Geek History Lesson Live. We'll let you noodle about that. I wonder what that is.
What could it be?
Well, you'll never know unless you don't donate. Patreon.com/Jawiin, Jawiin. And we thank all of our patrons for keeping this show going.
Thank you to everybody who has supported us so far and will in the future.
We're also thinking about a Geek History Lesson pin.
That's true.
All right, back to 0 Hour. Ashley, what is 0 Hour?
Is 0 Hour the one where Hal Jordan goes all crazy and then he destroys Coast City because he's possessed by Parallax?
Well, he destroys Coast City before 0 Hour.
Oh.
But this is crazy Hal Jordan that decides to reset the timeline.
That's right.
Yes.
There you go.
Now, since Mon-El is, again, directly affected by 0 Hour.
Oh, boy.
I want to explain 0 Hour a little bit.
Oh, good.
We're going to go a little bit into depth in 0 Hour just because I want to make sure you understand this. Now,
okay.
0 Hour is an event that served as an opportunity to reconcile some of the problems left unaddressed by Crisis on Infinite Earths, because we're about 10 years down the road for Crisis on Infinite Earths now.
So maybe some of the cracks are showing.
Yes. In particular, The revised characters of the post-Crisis universe had been rolled out gradually, with DC continuing to feature the old versions until the new versions were launched. So some of them were released a year or so after the first wave of revised characters were published, i.e., the Man of Steel miniseries with Superman's new origin, Wonder Woman Volume 2 with George Perez's new version, and Batman Year 1.
Oh, a year later, really?
Yep. Now, the Legion of Superheroes faced similar problems with the eliminations of Superboy and Supergirl from DC continuity because the editors wanted Superman to be the last son of Krypton. Mon-El, as we said, a character with similar powers, had been recast as Valor. But these and other retcons were not always well received by the readers and often introduced new problems.
I could see how that might be problematic.
After the events of Zero Hour, a new timeline was created in which the Legion existed on Earth 247. In this timeline, Largan's time as Valor in the 20th century was kept intact, including his membership in Legion and seeding worlds. This is Mon-El version 4.
Okay.
After suffering lead poisoning, Valor goes to Earth.
Always with the lead poisoning.
Yep. Where he has amnesia and he falls under the control of gambling boss Mr. Gamboni. Now, Gamboni sent Valor, calling him champion, to attack Superboy. This Superboy is Con-El, the clone of Superman.
Aha.
And he has a leather jacket and he has his high top haircut and he's totally awesome.
Yeah, he's the classic.
Babbage then located Valor, and Lar regained his memory. And to save Valor from poisoning, Superboy used a portal at Star Labs to send Valor into the stasis zone, where he would remain for 1,000 years.
Hey, I've heard a story like that before.
Yes. Now, Valor was trapped in stasis for 1,000 years, as I said, where he's able to silently observe events going on throughout the entire galaxy, but he couldn't interact with them. Eventually, he was able to psychically contact Saturn Girl, who initiated a Legion expedition to the past to help release him. And Brainiac 5 transported the Legion to the past, where they contacted Superboy and brought him back to the future. Through collaboration, they were able to release Valor into the 30th century and bring his health back with an improved anti-lead serum.
Yay! That's almost the same timeline story that we already talked about.
Yes, I know. It's almost like we didn't have to reboot it at all.
Almost.
But we are now actually currently in the what some people like to call the Archie Legion.
Oh, yes.
Because the entire Legion of Superheroes gets rebooted by Mark Waid. Actually, this is my favorite Legion.
Okay,
so,
good to know.
I just want to throw that out there.
Sweet.
So, Valor immediately became a controversial figure because during his time in stasis, he'd been elevated to the status of a religious figure throughout the galaxy because, of course, he seeded the worlds.
Yes.
So, Lar took on the role of an adventurer across the galaxy. And to mask his identity, R.J. Brand suggested that he take on the name of Mon-El. However, the spelling is different this time. It's M-O-N-E-L.
No. Unacceptable spelling.
Excuse me?
That also seems like a completely arbitrary name change just for the sake of it.
It was. It was also to make it different from K-A-L-E-L, Kal-El.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Khan. Yeah.
Yep. Now, this Mon-El was translated from Martian, and it meant the Wanderer.
Oh, that's kind of, okay, that's kind of neat.
Now, if you don't know who R.J. Brand is, he's the businessman founder of the Legion of Superheroes, just in case you didn't know who that was.
I didn't know that, so thank you.
So, when the Legion of Superheroes became a volunteer organization after President Chu was removed from office on corruption charges, Mon-El was able to join as a detached service agent, leaving him as a free agent to actually keep wandering the universe. Because basically, that's what Mon-El did during this time.
Okay. Just wandered around the universe doing stuff.
Yep. And then eventually he joined the Legion, stuff like that. He actually had several adventures with the Archie Legion. I'm not going to go too in depth into it because we should save that for our Legion of Superheroes episode.
Cool.
In fact, just throwing it out there, listeners, I think when we do our Legion of Superheroes episode, I think it might be a 3-part episode.
Whoa. Our longest episode to date.
There's too much.
And reboots aplenty.
I want to tell you about one of his very famous adventures with the Archie Legion that included a important Batman villain.
Okay.
Now, President Macaulay was the new United Planets president, and using the Presidential Oversight Watch as his pawns, he attempted to murder Legionnaires in secret.
Oh, that's not nice.
Mon-El discovered the actual man acting as president to be Ra's al Ghul.
Oh, Oh, we know him.
And the Legion also learned that the entire basis for the interstellar travel used by the Macaulay administration had been created through the brutal exploitation of the kidnapped later Vergron teleporters.
Sure.
Now, Ra's al Ghul freely announced his plan to the world. He intended to draw the moon closer to Earth, accelerating the evolutionary abilities of humanity through a process called hypertaxis. And the hypothesis being that just as other races had come under massive amounts of danger and stress and developed unique abilities, humans too would become more advanced.
He's like, you know what worked out real well for Krypton? We're going to do that here.
Although Ra's al Ghul managed to single-handedly defeat most of the Legion in hand-to-hand combat, he was finally defeated by Mon-El.
Hey!
And the Earth was saved.
That's pretty cool.
But...
oh no!
Eventually, Mon-El is lost when Superboy, Con-El, and the Teen Titans lose the Persuader's axe while trying to return to their own time. Mon-El attempts to hold the Legionnaires in a human chain, but is sucked into a vortex of white.
Oh, Mon-El.
Now, this, of course, happened in Teen Titans,
yes.
the Teen Titans series. It was eventually revealed, like I said earlier, that this Legion was eventually retconned to say that it comes from Earth 247, a metafictional homage to the Legion's first appearance in Adventure Comics number 247.
Oh, that's kind of nice. I like that.
Yes. And as the events of the 2005-2006 Infinite Crisis storyline played out, time and space again realigned and altered, and this incarnation of Mon-El and his exploits were thought to have been erased from the timeline.
So that means we're about to go into Mon-El number 5.
We are going into Mon-El number 5.
Okay, I am so ready for the 5th version of Mon-El and how he's the same but different.
Yes, here we go.
Okay.
So, this new Legion of Superheroes is called the Reboot Legion.
Okay.
Because it's the post-Infinite Crisis Legion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mark Waid gets another turn with the amazing Barry Kitson and art. And I'm going to explain this Legion a little bit because this Legion is quite different.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. In the 31st century, in this version of it anyway, those who are considered by society to be below adulthood have almost no voice in their own future. Most underagers are detected by a universal technology called the public service, which allows adults to steer kids away from rebellion and towards lives of quiet inaction, where the free exchange of ideas have been supplanted by this notion that protocol and decorum are civilization's most sacred ideals. Legionnaires unite against that idea, and that they think the universe should be more exciting and interesting because they're all big fans of the era when Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman and the heroes were what taught society how to make a difference. And they think that's a good thing, and they want to be like their heroes.
Okay, so they want to live in the opposite of the Kingdom Come universe.
Well, not really at all, but sure. Now, this is the Legion that Kara Zor-El, who had been introduced around this time, goes to. And it's there that she meets Mon-El. However, it is revealed in Final Crisis Legion of Three Worlds that this future, again, is not the future of New Earth.
What?
But instead the future of Earth Prime. Now, Ashley, do you know what Earth Prime is?
Not really.
Now, in this version of the multiverse, Earth Prime is our Earth.
Okay.
It's our world.
It's our future.
Yep. And the full actual past of this version of Mon-El is actually unknown.
Great.
Okay?
Super. Of course.
Now, Ashley, what version of Mon-El is this?
5. 6.
This is 5.
5.
We're going to meet 6.
Oh, holy expletive, Batman. I didn't think we'd get to 6, so I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Oh, we're going to go higher than 6.
Oh, expletive.
All right. So we're going to forget that Mon-El that Supergirl briefly meets in the Reboot universe.
Great.
And we're going to go on to another Mon-El. Now, really quickly, this new Mon-El appearing in DC Comics at the same time, it appears at DC Comics at the same time that the previous Legion was, before the previous Legion was told it's out of continuity. Double confusing, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to sort of try to explain it to you.
Okay. Thank you.
After a storyline by Brad Meltzer, post-Infinite Crisis, in the Justice League series, it was called The Lightning Saga. Mm-hmm. Now, in this storyline, they introduced a Legion of Superheroes that looked exactly like the pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths Legion of Superheroes.
Okay.
Now, the originals Now, this is confusing.
Yeah.
Because at the same time Brad Meltzer did this, they were publishing the reboot Legion of Superheroes comics.
Oh, no.
And in the reboot Legion of Superheroes comics, that's where that Mon-El appeared. Well, guess what? Another Mon-El appears at the same time, and there's nothing that says that they're the same Mon-El.
Good.
So ignore the reboot version of Legion.
Okay.
We're going to talk about Mon-El version number
6.
Number 6.
Okay.
Good God. Ready?
Yeah.
Even though this Mon-El could be considered the original Mon-El number 1, they do change his storyline. So technically, this is Mon-El number 6.
Great.
Are you starting to understand why I said this is the most confusing Geek History lesson I have ever written?
Yes, I definitely understand.
This is mind-numbingly bonkers.
Yes, correct.
And for no good reason.
Right. It would have been one thing. Whatever. It is what it is. It would have been one thing if it served maybe some sort of overarching thing, but I suspect it didn't.
It did not at all.
All right.
In this new continuity, Largand is now a remote descendant of a male human and Balgand, a female Daxamite who visited Earth during the height of the Mayan Empire. She returned to Daxam rather than let her child be born as an apparent demigod on Earth, but programmed her spaceship to return him to Earth if Daxamite xenophobia made that necessary, because Daxamites are terrible in this new future and they hate anybody that isn't a Daxamite.
Cool. So that's the version that Supergirl took for the show.
Yep. Generations later, her descendant Largan gives in to a suppressed instinct to escape the increasingly isolated Daxam and travels the stars. And he is brought by his ancestor's ship, which is programmed to basically go to Central America on Earth. Mm-hmm. When Largan arrived on Earth, he meets a young Clark Kent, but Lar suffers from amnesia, so Clark names him Mon-El. Exactly the same way he does in the original version because of Monday and L.
Monday L.
Yep. Now, Clark doesn't believe Mon-El to be Kryptonian, so he decides to test him with a piece of kryptonite. But the protective lead casing for the meteor both poisons him and restores his memories. And he recalls that upon arriving at Earth, a sunspot storm ruptured his fuse cells, causing him to crash, explaining how his ship missed Central America by thousands of miles and crashing in Smallville instead. And the sunspot is also why he lost his memories. Now, Clark again uses a portal to the Phantom Zone to put Mon-El in stasis until his lead poisoning can be cured. And years later, a young Clark Kent encounters Mon-El when they were both trapped in the Phantom Zone. Mon-El had been observing the actions of General Zod and his allies in the zone, including their base of operations, a prison immune to the timeless Phantom Zone effect. And he aids Superman in defeating one of Zod's followers while the prison at the cost while the cost of advancing his lead poisoning before returning to his Phantom Zone state and sending Superman back to Earth out of the Phantom Zone.
Yes.
Basically, there was an adventure where Mon-El helped Superman.
Yeah.
Now, several years later, the bottled city of Kandor is freed by Brainiac. It becomes large size, and the Kryptonians initially reside on Earth. Mm-hmm. And after several Kryptonians murder the police officers guarding the parasite, the heroes of the world try and arrest the Kryptonians, the Just League, basically. And using Brainiac's technology, the Kryptonians remove the city from Earth and create a new planet on the opposite side of the sun that they dub New Krypton. This is all the New Krypton storyline. Mm-hmm. Now, General Zod and his associates are freed from the Phantom Zone prison by Allura L. Ashley, who is Allura L?
Allura L is Supergirl's mom.
Yes, that is exactly correct. And in this storyline, Supergirl's mom is kind of a bitch.
Yeah, that sort of happens from time to time.
Yep. Now, General Zod decides to have the Phantom Zone destroyed. In an effort to save the life of Mon-El, Superman releases Mon-El before the zone collapses. And Superman finds an antidote for Mon-El left behind by the Legion during the Lightning Saga, that storyline by Brad Meltzer.
Yes.
Mon-El ingests it and is instantly cured. After being freed from the Phantom Zone, Mon-El is asked by Superman if he would act as a protector of Metropolis while Superman is off-world because he wants to cruise New Krypton for chicks behind Lois's back.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But Superman wants to go to New Krypton.
Yeah.
All right. Mon-El meets Jimmy Olsen and gives him a signal watch so that Jimmy can contact him. And in his first battle as protector of Metropolis, Mon-El fights against Rampage and meets up with the Guardian and Steel, who Superman had asked to help him out in his new role. Despite succeeding in knocking Rampage out, Mon-El is cautioned by the Guardian for having been inexperienced and disregarding the safety of others during his fight. Basically, he had a lot of property damage. Mon-El is granted a secret identity and background as a British Interpol agent named Jonathan Kent by the Guardian, and he begins working with the Science Police.
The Science Police.
Yes. Now, the Science Police are this section of the Metropolis Police Department that actually fight metahumans. And they later actually become the basis for the Legion of Superheroes because their headquarters are the upside-down rocket that the Legion later reside in.
It's just a silly name.
I actually really like the Science Police.
The Science Police.
Now, Mon-El eventually gets captured by Sam Lane's Project 7734.
Yes.
Who is Sam Lane?
Lois Lane's dad, who is usually a general.
Yes. Now, also at the time, Flamebird and Nightwing are operating. And Flamebird at this time is Chris Kent and Thara Akvar. Now, Chris, of course, is the son of Zod that was introduced by Richard Donner and Jeff Johns during his Last Son of Krypton storyline.
Cool.
Now, Mon-El manages to escape, but he ends up being stranded in the Forlorn dimension, helping Captain Atom get free from the clutches of the Mirabai, the evil queen of the Forlorn, and who's actually Sam Lane's chief ally who was doing Sam Lane a favor by keeping Mon-El captured in this dimension.
Cool.
Following his escape, Mon-El returns to Metropolis wearing a modified version of his red and blue costume, similar to the costume of Golden Age Hal Carr. Remember that guy?
Hey, I do.
Complete with a Superman S shield over his left chest.
Oh, I like that costume a lot.
I like this costume a lot, too. Mon-El then asks Superboy to reprogram Kellex, the android at the Fortress of Solitude, to repair the starship he came to Earth in. And he also enters into a relationship with Billy Harper, the Guardian's grandniece. Following a battle with the Atomic Skull, Mon-El is invited to join the new Justice League Adventure, Justice League of America, although Justice League of Adventure would be a fun name, wouldn't it?
I would read the heck out of that. DC can hire you at any time to write it.
Yeah. At the invitation of Dr. Light, Kamiyo Hoshi. This is the Asian Dr. Light.
Oh, I love that version.
Now, this is what I like to call the Sidekick League, because this Justice League has Cyborg, Donna Troy, Starfire, and Dick Grayson Batman as leader.
Yeah. It's very much the Titans grew up and became the Justice League.
Yes. And they mostly have good stories, but not great stories.
Yeah, they have some solid stories.
They have a couple silly stories. I mean, they decided to put Kong Gorilla on the team, and it's like, why?
The gorillas are a hard sell.
Yes.
I will give you that.
After helping to save New Krypton and seeding the United Planet worlds and according to time loop instructions left behind by the Legion in the Lightning Saga, just like we learned in this lesson, Mon-El begins to die.
Oh no, Mon-El.
Because he's become immune to the lead poisoning antidote, and he must return to the recreated Phantom Zone that was recreated by a Chameleon Boy, where he will remain until he's rescued by the Legion in the 30th century. Now, whether his long isolation causes memory loss, or he is carefully avoiding a time paradox by never mentioning his 21st century adventures in the 31st century is unknown.
Okay.
Now, Mon-El, before he leaves, tells Superboy to give his girlfriend Billy a farewell letter. And it is revealed when Superboy gives this letter to Billy that she is pregnant, presumably with Mon-El's child.
Of course it is.
Well, don't worry. You won't have to worry about Billy's child because we're getting close to a reboot.
Great.
Mon-El is rescued from the Phantom Zone by his teammates. However, his time in the Phantom Zone has reset his physiology, meaning that Brainiac 5 has to re-administer the anti-lead serum. And Mon-El takes part in the event with his Legion and two others from alternate realities to battle Superboy Prime and the Legion of Supervillains. Mon-El and Shadowlass after that are assigned the task of taking the remains of the final Green Lantern, Ron Vidar, to Oa. And there they meet Sodom Yat.
Hey!
The last guardian of the universe and a fellow Daxamite. Mon-El and Shadowlass are able to convince Sodom to join them in the fight after Sodom's enemy, Superboy Prime. This, of course, is during the Legion of Three Worlds storyline. Mon-El is then eventually chosen to become a Green Lantern by Jawiin, who basically takes over the duties of Mogo, distributing all the Green Lantern rings. And before leaving to become a Green Lantern of the universe, he tells Shadowlass that even though he is a Green Lantern, the Legion, Earth, and his friends will always be his family.
Aw,
And
that's nice.
then Flashpoint and the New 52 happened. Ashley, what's Flashpoint and the New 52?
Barry Allen missed his mom, so he ran back in time and reset the timeline, and everybody got new costumes with a bunch more lines on it in 2011, and the New 52 is the world that resulted from this.
Yes. Now, the New 52, a 2011 reboot of the DC Comics universe, Gand appears as the field leader of the Legion of Superheroes, and it is further revealed that this version as the entire Legion is possibly the original one from before the Flashpoint event, as they are aware of Flashpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're at Mon-El number
7.
7. This is Mon-El number 7, you're saying?
This will be Mon-El number 7. Yeah.
Okay, this could technically be Mon-El number 1.
Well, so could Mon-El number 6, though.
But we're going to call him Mon-El number 7.
Yeah. Okay, great.
All right. So they sort of know that Flashpoint happened.
Okay.
The entire Legion was remobilized to battle Infinus in the 6-issue Infinus saga in the Justice League United, written by Jeff Lemire. The Infinus saga featured Brainiac 5 as the leader and the return of the Legion Lost team to active Legion status, with the inclusion of a number of Legionnaires from other continuities in the Legion's active ranks. So, that was the last time we saw the Legion.
Yeah.
And DC Rebirth could have rebooted the Legion again. So we could be at Mon-El number 8. We don't know, honestly, in DC Rebirth because we haven't been told yet.
But probably.
So that is it for Mon-El and his 7 different incarnations.
Mon-El and the 7 reboots. I really want to commend you for being able to make even some semblance of sense out of his history.
Right now, listeners out there, I hope you're all infinitely confused, because if you are, then it means I did my job.
Correct.
All right.
Good job.
Let's move on to recommended reading.
Where we are going to recommend a bunch of stuff that you can read in case you want to go out into the world and learn more about Mon-El. You can find this and our entire catalog at geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading. Go over there, click on the Amazon widgets, get you some books, and a little bit comes back our way to help us reboot 7 times in the future.
Now, a lot of Mon-El's history is not in print because a lot of the Legion is not in print.
Mm-hmm.
So there's very few Mon-El stories to recommend you. I'm going to recommend you Superman Mon-El Volume 1. This is during the New Krypton storyline. This is the first section of stories where Mon-El gets rescued from the Phantom Zone and decides to take over for Superman. I also am going to recommend Superman Mon-El Man of Valor. Now, this is Volume 2 of that same storyline.
Mm-hmm.
This is where he gets his spiffy new costume and he starts dating Billy.
Aww.
Stuff like that. And then lastly, I'm going to recommend you, Mon-El it may not be in this book very much, but I'm going to recommend it anyway. Legionnaires Book 1. This is by Mark Waid. It is the post-Zero Hour Legion, the Archie Legion. Mm-hmm. This is my favorite Legion. This is also written by Mark Waid. This book is not out yet. It's going to come out very soon, but it's an awesome book, and you should definitely buy it. It's my favorite Legion.
Cool. So get all of that when you need to know more about Mon-El.
Let's move on into discussion.
Where we'll discuss a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Ashley.
Yes.
I don't want to talk about the TV show.
Okay.
Because people can go watch Supergirl.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the comics.
Yeah.
You've read some Mon-El.
Maybe.
Well, because you mentioned that you like his favorite costume and stuff like that. So
yeah. I mean, yes.
You've read Mon-El and some
yes.
stories. Do you like Mon-El, the comic book character?
That's a tough question for me.
Because I didn't ask you which version?
Yeah, because it's going to change from version to version.
Do you like any version of Mon-El?
I do like specific versions of Mon-El. I think DC has a problem with too many Kryptonians and too many Kryptonian analogs. And that does translate over into the movies and into the shows because, of course, Superman needs someone who can A, empathize with him, or B, challenge him. And I understand that, but I think that making a Superman copy is maybe not the greatest choice. In the whatever the present day storyline is, I really only have use for Superman, Jonathan Kent, and Kara as far as a Kryptonian goes. There are other characters I like. I've liked certain versions of Superwoman. I like Steel. I think there's cool things to be done there, but I don't need another Kryptonian analog in a Superman story. So in a modern story, I don't really have much use for Mon-El.
Okay.
I'll give Sodom Yat a pass because he basically doesn't have anything to do with Earth. He's off and off in space.
He's also a Daxamite, not a Kryptonian.
No, but Daxamites are basically Kryptonian light.
Yes, but they're not Kryptonians the way the Supergirl TV show makes them.
No, that's true, but they are. I mean, Sodom, and Mon-El both look like Superman too. I like Mon-El better in the far-flung future of the Legion adventures.
Me too. I mean, to be honest with you, I like Valor the best. Mm-hmm. I like it when he's just Valor and he's like sort of this religious figure guy. Although having him be around in the 20th century is a little problematic.
It is problematic.
So this sort of leads into my next question. You might have sort of already answered this, but I want to talk about it anyway. Uh-huh. Should he be tied to Superman at all, or is that redundant? So here's my question to you: should Mon-El exist? And here's the thing, because if you were writing your perfect DC universe, you talked about the Kryptonians. I agree with you. There should not be that many Kryptonians out of you, and the only exception I would give to your list is Zod.
Sure, I'll give you Zod. Yes, yeah. I'll give you Zod.
Should Mon-El just be his own thing? And should he only be in the Legion?
Yes, and he should not be called Mon-El because it's confusing.
Yep.
That's fine. That was a thing in the past. I don't want to discount that.
Just call him Largand.
Yeah, just call him Largand. But the fact that nobody knows that he's actually called Largand, I think is a problematic construct of the character and the way he's been executed. And I think that when he is inevitably brought back in Rebirth continuity, because he will be at some point.
The Legion will come back, yes.
That would be a great way to rehab and update the character. I think it is unlikely to happen because the TV show has given him a brand awareness that Mon-El has never had before, and we all now know him as Mon-El. But the fact that he's not a member of the House of El, I think, is troubling.
Well, it's interesting because they don't explain why he called himself Mon-El, even though we see this in this one episode that there is a Superman shielded guy there who you would think would be part of the House of El, and maybe that's where he got the name.
Yeah, I would love it if we learned that that's the name that he took on.
Yes, that was the name the pod belonged to.
Yeah,
the Kryptonian pod. Yes.
But I think the Daxamites are interesting enough that you don't have to just make him another Superman.
Yes, I love the Legion. Mm-hmm. But I do think the Legion, hardcore, need a streamline. And the problem is that I think, man, and I know we are our major spoilers family. We have Steven Schleicher and Matthew Peterson, who do the Legion Clubhouse podcast over at majorspoilers.com, which is a great podcast. Go listen to it. Not only because I'm the narrator of it.
That's true.
But they would argue that the original version of the Legion needs to come back. Jeff Johns would make that argument too. That's the reason why he brought them back in the Lightning Saga.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't want the original version to come back. I don't even want my favorite version to come back. What I think needs to happen is I really think the Legion needs to be completely rebirthed from Ground Zero, taking the best elements from each version.
Do you want to know what I would do with the Legion?
Sure.
I would take that as an opportunity to define Supergirl as well. Separately, I would revamp Supergirl and the Legion. I would send her into the future during some major event, and that's how I would relaunch it. Because I think that
you need a tie to a Superman character.
I think you do. I think Supergirl in Rebirth has not been maybe as exciting as it could be, and I think that would be a really great way to give her something unique to do. Mm-hmm. I also think it would be a great way to tie back to the current continuity without having a bunch of characters show up. But Supergirl is really in the zeitgeist with the TV show, so it might invite some people who've stayed away from the Legion, because the Legion is notoriously complicated. And difficult to wrap your head around. I think that might be a great way to entice new readers to come and visit it, especially if you have Kara and Mon-El as two sort of flagship characters.
Well, also, I'll give you another thing. I'm a big fan of Con-El, and I think
it'd be a great way to.
Here you go. You have a storyline in Superman where he finds a cloning tomb of Lex Luthor's, because we know Lex Luthor's making Bizarros in this universe, and he opens it up, and it's a teenager version of him, and it's named Con-El. And then eventually that teenager starts succumbing to the Bizarro, like he starts turning into a Bizarro. So Superman, to save him, puts him in a stasis tube. Then we launch the Legion. They find that stasis tube. They cure him. Now we have a permanent Superboy with the Legion of Superheroes.
I think that's interesting, too, because in a world where Jonathan Kent is now Superboy, Connor is sort of a moot character.
But
now,
that would allow you to have Connor.
Exactly.
He's the 31st century Superboy.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And because he is a character with legacy and with fans.
Yes.
So that's a good call with Connor.
That's exactly. And that way, because I am a strong believer that I think the Legion is a tough concept to use without a tie to the Superman family.
It is.
And whether that's with Supergirl or Superboy, I think you need that person there.
I think they're the two best options because they're characters, too, that need defining outside of whatever Clark is up to. And sometimes that's hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's difficult to do.
All right, cool. Let's move on into the final section of our podcast, the Teaching Tweet.
Where in 140 characters or less, Professor Jason is going to sum up everything you just taught us.
Yes, and you're going to find these tweets at GHL Podcast.
Correct.
On Twitter. Here we go. Mon-El. You were tricked by Superman because you were a low-rent Superman. Valor's a better name. That's it.
#7.
#7 Mon-Els. Holy Jesus.
That's great.
Oh my God. Did you think there were going to be that many Mon-Els?
I kind of thought there'd be 5, so no.
I told you that. I don't think anybody out there could have predicted how confusing this lesson was going to get.
I don't think so either. I mean, the people who knew.
Yeah.
But I didn't know.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to our insanely confused lesson. I hope you're very confused. Don't forget to be confused and subscribe to us on Stitcher and iTunes. You can download us there every single week. And when you're over on iTunes, please leave us a rating and a review. I mean, seriously, because it's the only way that we're going to transverse the 1,000 years to the 31st century is by all these ratings and reviews. And when you leave us a review, we're going to read them. Like this one from Silverpick Music, who said, I love Ashley and Jason.
Aw.
What more is there to say?
Aw, that's so nice.
Very nice of them. Also, don't forget to go over to Patreon because that's the only place that you can listen to Geek History Lesson Extra. This week's episode is what replacement Superman should actually replace Superman. Very interesting discussion. I'm very excited to get into this. You can find that at patreon.com/Jawiin, Jawiin. Don't forget to follow this podcast on Twitter at GHL Podcast and follow me on Twitter at Jawiin, Jawiin, and Ashley on Twitter at Ashley V. Robinson. And Ashley, if they wanted to suggest future lessons like the 3-part Legion of Superheroes, where can they do that?
They can do that at facebook.com/geekhistorylesson and geekhistorylesson.com. There is a bunch of ways to get in contact with us in both of those places.
Again, thank you for listening. I'm Jason Valor Inman.
I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson, and Professor Jason, would you please dismiss the Legion?
To the 31st century, class!